Hi, this is Emily Freitag with Instruction Partners, and today is April 30th. We are north of 1 million cases in the country, and unemployment is north of 26 million. At this point, schools are out or recommended for closure in almost every state, and there are promising treatment advances that are getting some attention, and there are some vaccines moving into trial, but the expected timeline for recovery continues to be in the 12 to 18 month timeframe. We have talked in the past about the chapters that we see ahead. This is an epidemiological framework for how healthcare recovers from the virus that we've tried to adapt for schools. With the first chapter, the crisis, schools fully out. And then once restrictions start lifting, until there is a vaccine or a scalable treatment or herd immunity, we will be in this reentry chapter where public health is the priority. And that we are seeing hybrid schooling scenarios emerge there. Today, I want to talk more about reentry. Once there is a vaccine or treatment, which will happen, we would enter recovery, and that would be a time of fully back in school, but economic fallout continuing for multiple years. Once there's economic recovery, we would chart a new normal. So right now, leaders have the challenging task of both managing a complete reimagination of school in distance learning in the present and supporting present day needs and challenges, while also starting to anticipate reentry and what this chapter may look like whenever it may come. Today, I want to talk about what we're seeing to be the scenarios for reentry, what that means for the present tense work, and some preliminary ideas about recovery. There are 4 scenarios that we're seeing school leaders benefit from starting to plan towards when we think about the re-entry chapter. So physical distance restrictions continue to be in place, but we are able to return to school in some form. And we're encouraging our partners to start thinking about how to plan for each of these 4 scenarios, so that we are ready to adapt with whatever comes. The first scenario would be most students and teachers are in person in school at the same time with social distancing within school. The second scenario would be most students and teachers come to school, but not all at the same time. So for lack of a better vision on this, we're suggesting to think about what would you do if you had 1/3 of students at any given time, while the other 2/3 are at home, continuing some kind of distance learning at a distance. The third scenario would be half in person, like every day, half at home every day. And that half would both be students and faculty. And then the fourth scenario would be back to distance learning, everyone at home. And we're seeing benefit in examining what would your plan be for 2 weeks and for 2 months, if that is the situation, if there's rolling closures. So those are the 4 scenarios that we're starting to help leaders think through. In all of 4 of these scenarios, public health is the first priority. That does not mean learning is not in the mix, but keeping students safe, keeping faculty safe, keeping communities safe will be the most important thing, which means really in all 4 of those scenarios, we're reimagining school. And this is emotional work as leaders and teachers and just as communities, as parents, as students. And there is just real grief, and there's present tense grief. We're seeing this chiefly for the unbelievable class of 2020, who is facing the loss of spring traditions and longed for milestones. But I think we have to start doing some of the emotional work of seeing what will not be true for the coming school year and letting that go for now, knowing that there will be a day when we are back together in person and school has the glorious aspects that it did. But here are some of the things that we are realizing we're going to have to let go for the coming year. Meetings on the rug, hugs, high fives, field trips will be very hard to imagine, assemblies, predictability, knowing what is coming, faculty meetings in person. This is a starter list. I am sure there are many other things that are going to be a part of what we are, what we lose out on that we know to be true. And this chapter will require leaders to play new roles, roles we might have not have signed up for. Temperature checkers, hand washing monitors, social distance enforcers, staff health supporters, grief counselors, tech support providers. We're doing that now. Cleaning protocol designers, PPE inventory trackers. There is more that no doubt we will be asked to take on in this unpredictable time. What we are seeing true, though, is that the essential purpose of education remains constant, remains critical, and that schools are more important than ever. It is still our job to prepare students for their lives and for opportunity in an uncertain world. We knew the world was changing. It is more clear that the world is going to be quite different, and that is still our job as educators. It is still our job as leaders to support the wellness and the care of our staff, our students, and our families. We did sign up for that. It is still our job to give students routines and structures that give their lives predictability and purpose. And it is still our job to chart a vision for our team of what we are trying to do and help our team work together towards that vision. None of that has changed. We will come back to in-person school for everyone at some point. And that chapter, learning and emotional support, will be the focus. Public health, there will be a time when temperature checking is no longer part of our normal. However, that day is several months, if not a year off. And we do need to be ready for recovery. I don't think leaders have to think about that scenario quite yet, but organizations like Instruction Partners are certainly starting to try to get ahead of some thoughts there, with particular attention to equity. As we think about recovery, we do think that what we need to guard against is the triple threat of inequity. Inequity already existed. These events will make it worse. And we have to be sure as educators that our response to these events do not make it even worse. So we are launching a series of reflections on what we know about what works and what does not to intervene effectively and accelerate student learning, because we think understanding that will shape both how we think about recovery and reentry. So this Rethinking Intervention series, we're doing a number of interviews. If you have thoughts on key questions you want us to be asking or people we should be talking to, please let me know. And amid all of this, what can leaders do now? One, I do think seeing the duration of these chapters puts pressure on nailing distance learning now to the very best of your ability. Create a vision for what you're trying to accomplish, take care of your people, mitigate learning loss, and build new habits that you will need in the future, not just right now. The second is to begin to plan for these reentry scenarios. Do the emotional work of grieving and of starting to imagine how changed school will be for the coming year. Help your staff do the same. Reflect on what is working and what is not in your current distance learning, because you will need those lessons as you think to the future, and begin to understand what you will do in each of these scenarios. Finally, please take care of yourself. This is such a hard time to lead. It is exhausting. It is decision-making fatigue exhausting, and keep taking care of yourself. Grab and Go Week 5 is up, as are a number of new resources, and coming soon we will have more detail on these scenarios, visions and goal starting points for reentry, instructional models for each scenario, and beginning thinking about the teacher and leader role in each scenario. And to end, courage is not having the strength to go on. It is going on when you don't have the strength. That resonated with me this week, and I hope you are well. Let us know how we can help, one step at a time together.